Okay, so we're going to be talking about different sets, reps, and volume today. So, volume is just basically the sets by the reps. So, if you did 3 sets by 8 reps, that'd be 24 total reps, and that'd be pretty much the volume you'd be working in. So, I think people overcomplicate sets and reps. You could simplify it very easily and still make gains. For example, when we go back to the gym, if you just started off 3 sets of 8, your first session back, and I've talked about this before, the weight you were using 3 months ago before this whole pandemic happened, that's out the window. It just that first week, just get right back to 60%, 7% of the volume of the not the volume of the weight you were using. You're gonna have to use that just to ease yourself in because let's look at the flip side of that really quickly. You start going back in 3 sets of 8. Let's say you hit a bench press, you were doing 100 kilo, you go right back on 100 kilo. Likelihood is you're going to do yourself an injury, and all of a sudden the gyms are open again. The first session in, you do an injury, and you're out of the gym again for 2-3 weeks. That's not smart. So you're going to have to dial it back, check the ego at the door like you always should. You get your 3 sets of 8 in, and here's what I'm talking about when people confuse things too much. If you get 3 sets of 8 in, and the next week your reps go up to 3 sets of 10 and everything else stays the same, well, you're talking about progressive overload there. So you're obviously going to get that little bit better, that little bit stronger, especially if you hit your 3 sets of 8 one week, your 3 sets of 10 the next week, and maybe even 3 sets of 12 the following week. After that, you can change the exercise and make them a little bit harder. So maybe the first week you might do some sort of dumbbell press or something like that, and maybe after the 3-4 weeks you might switch it up a little bit to floor presses. If you're still feeling gains, you can go back to those 3 sets of 8 on the same exercise and just increase the weight and keep that going. And that's a progressive overload that happens each week. You're like, Sean, that seems too simple. Well, simple works. If that working for you and you're writing down your best lift each and every week, that's gonna work. So there's nothing wrong with that. You're getting stronger. It's gonna help with hypertrophy as well. You're gonna, especially if you're a guy in this one. It's gonna help build there. Obviously, it comes to calories in outside the gym as well. But you are gonna get stronger if you just went 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10 the next week, 3 sets of 12 the following week, and it went right back to 3 sets of 8 again on the same exercise and just went a little bit heavier and kept going that way. If you kept doing that, you will keep seeing progress. But human nature is we want to try different things. So every 4 to 6 weeks, it's not a bad idea. Just keep switching it up so you're right back it just feels fresh and you're not just bored with the same exercise over and over and over again. But if you can get motivated off the results alone and you're documenting what you're doing, by all means, 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 12, keep it going from there. And then you may look at it, depends on what your goals are in terms of reps. So getting a little bit more detail. If your main goal is just to get stronger, you want to have lower rep scheme, and the reason you want to have a lower rep scheme is that first rep is going to be just a higher intensity, closer to max out effort. The drawback with a lower rep scheme is your volume's obviously going to drop, which is not a bad thing. Depends on what your goals are, but you're going to need a longer rest period. So if you do your 5 reps of let's go back to the bench press because it's the easiest thing to talk about. Your 5 reps there, it's gonna be all systems go from that rep one, trying to push to get that 5 rep max, and because it's less reps and you're pushing from the get go, that's gonna help you towards building a better 1 rep max, which is obviously overall strength. If it's a little bit, if you're going from 8, 10, 12, yes, you're still working on strength, but those first couple of reps are a little bit easier. You're building up to there, and you're probably thinking, well, if they're too easy, does that mean that they're a waste of time? I should always stick to 5 reps. Not really, because if your goal is hypertrophy and strength, well, then more volume's going to come into it. And if you do 5 sets of 5 on strength, then you're doing 25 overall reps. But even 3 sets of 8 right there is your 24 reps, and you'll probably get 3 sets of 8 done a lot quicker than you would 5 sets of 5, because you'd probably need at least 60 90 seconds if you're not doing too much training before, but even longer if you are training rest in between. Whereas for the 3 sets of 8, you're probably only going to need around 60 seconds and you're right back at it. So you could easily get 3 sets of 8 done in 5 minutes, because you're obviously only 2 rest periods in between, because after third you're done before you want something else. So obviously within 5 minutes, whereas the 5 sets of 5, you're talking around 2 minutes or so per each set. So that could take up to 10 minutes there. So it depends on what your goals are. It depends on how efficient you want to be in the gym, moving around and going from there. The other thing I want to hit on with low reps, especially coming back in, is low reps is, and this was my mindset before, the only reason you do low reps would be for strength. But before this all kicked off, this whole pandemic, I was back doing deadlifts, and the consensus would be to do 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10. So the weight's not too heavy, I'm easing into it, I'm getting back to it. But with something like a deadlift, form is crucial, and especially for me, because I've got a thing in my head about doing deadlifts. This is strap bar deadlifts. I'll probably never do Romanian straight bar deadlift. Not Romanian, sorry, a straight bar full deadlift. And the reason I won't do a full straight bar deadlift is, for me, not that it's a bad exercise, it's a great exercise if you do it right, but I know my mobility is not there. I've had issues with my lower back, and the risk of doing injury is too high for the reward for me to do deadlifts like that. So I'm not knocking deadlifts. If you could do deadlifts, by all means, do them. But getting back to my point, I was doing a trap bar deadlift, and instead of doing what you'd normally do, would be 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, and a lighter weight build from there over time. I think it was 5 sets of 3, or maybe even 6 sets of 3. And the weight was light. So you're probably thinking, Sean, well, the weight was light, you probably weren't getting too much out of that. Well, no, because the rest period was shorter because I was a lightweight. But as well as that, after 3 reps, I was able to reset myself for 30-40 seconds, get right back at it. Why was that important? Because my most important thing to get through these deadlifts was not strength, it was form. It was to get back to doing them. So if I had done 10 reps, by the time I got to the 6th, 7th, 8th rep, I know regardless of the weight, my form is going to get sloppy because I'm not used to doing deadlifts. I'm not used to getting the right position doing deadlifts. And when my form starts to get sloppy, I'm more likely going to have an injury. So I went right back and did 3 reps instead, built it up slowly from there. You could do that with exercises now, coming back into the gym after a couple of weeks off. I was listening to a podcast, Joe DeFranco podcast, and he talked about doing 6 sets of 5 instead of 3 sets of 10, just so your form is spot on, you're getting used to lifting again, and build from there from the first week and move on from there. And like he was saying in the podcast, there's a million and one different ways of doing things, but that one resonated with me. That made sense with me to do it that way. Drop the reps back a little bit, get a few more sets in, but stay safe in the gym, stay healthy in the gym, because that's number one. Number one thing in the gym is not to get stronger, in my opinion. It's not to get bigger. The number one thing is to stay safe, to keep your health going, to keep moving in the right way. Everything else follows suits from there. If your form is not there, if that foundation is not there, then you're more likely going to get injured. And if you're going to get injured, then if that risk for injury is too high, then what are you doing in the gym in the first place? Why would you keep risking yourself that much each and every time in the gym? To counter that really quick before I wrap up this podcast, there are times where you just gotta, after you've built up for a while, you gotta say, you know what? Let's go for that 2 rep max, that 3 rep max, and let's just see what happens, because you have to challenge yourself. You have to aim high. You can't be just all the time playing it completely safe. But definitely for the first week, couple of weeks back in the gym, I wouldn't recommend it. Let's build yourself in, because the worst thing you want to be doing is sitting on the couch at home, knowing you want to be back in the gym, knowing that other people are back in the gym, getting after it, and you're after doing something stupid, injuring yourself, and you're out longer than this whole pandemic thing is going on. So that's pretty much it on sets, reps, progression, progressive overload I'm going to talk about today. Keep it simple. Simple works. So keep it simple. Keep going with that. Let me know how you're finding this podcast. Drop us an email, Sean@CoachSeanC.com. Hit us up on Instagram as well, a DM at Coach_SeanC. And that's pretty much it for this short episode of the Coach Sean Fitness Podcast. Thank you once again for listening and downloading this episode of the podcast. From Coach Sean, from me, take care. Now that wasn't a hard video to get through now, was it? I hope you guys got some value out of the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the Coach Sean channel, which is somewhere here. And hit that button, subscribe to the Coach Sean channel, leave a thumbs up. There should be a couple of other videos around here for you guys to check out. And that's all from me, from Coach Sean. Take care.